meeting is at 6:30 tomorrow night, and looking forward to that, of course. Tonight, Ms. McLeod, you ready to go? Okay, you all, everyone should have paperwork, agenda.
There he comes.
I don't think Mr. Hodge has said.
Need some paperwork from Mr. Hodge.
And Mr. Reed's coming in the door.
Mr. Reed?
We are required, of course, every year, numerous times, to review policy. And Ms. McLeod is ready, and you have the agenda in front of you. Ms. McLeod?
Yes, let me first tell you that the agenda that I sent you last week, we have taken the credit recovery policy off that agenda. So the one you have in front of you is updated without that policy, just because there seem to be ongoing changes, so we decided to put that to the next meeting. When the state board has clearly figured out what the components are going to be. So it is a little bit shorter based on that one. The first 6 policies are from section 1 of the policy manual, and some of these changes just come to you based after Mr. Odom's review of some of those policies to get them in line with what we're currently doing or make changes if we need to. We'll start with 1.103 is board self-evaluation. And in reviewing section 1 of our policy manual, just as our annual review, we came across this policy and realized the board is not currently doing the self-evaluation, so we either need to eliminate this policy or let the board decide to make some changes to it, or decide to keep it and then begin to practice the self-evaluation if you choose to.
There's no statutory requirement, was
No.
it?
Committee?
We get evaluated pretty regular when we go to the polls. So.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
And this is one of those, I will say, that when TSBA helped us to kind of overhaul our policy manual, they added it because it's part of their model policy manual. So it's not something that we want to utilize, we certainly don't have to do that.
I don't see there's a real need for it unless the board just wants to do it. You've got the, the state evaluations now that you didn't have back years ago before this policy came into effect. So you're getting graded by the state based on the performance of the school system.
I don't think it hurts, though. I mean, we can look at these things. I know these things are in the back of y'all's mind all the time, So, what would be involved in implementing this? Time-wise, effort-wise, that kind of thing.
My immediate thought when I read this over the weekend was that, and I was really looking at part C and other parts as well, and that is that in part of board discussion, we do that anyway. We're constantly evaluating and pointing out things maybe we need to do better, or things that we've done well. But I have no problem with the board self-evaluation, except perhaps for the time that it would take. But if you all think, well, I'll entertain a motion either way, and we'll see where we stand if you wish.
The school system does have to, we have E-Plan online, which we may at the next board meeting, I want y'all to kind of see what ours is, the district, because every school has to align to it. It's anywhere between 60 and 100 pages, depending on the school. And it breaks down using the state's goals. And so it's due, the schools are due November,
November 12th, I think, or 15th, Mr. Oates.
and I was told Friday that our district had been approved.
Yes, sir. It's been approved by the Corps and the state.
So ours is approved as far as the district. So we just need to kind of make y'all aware of it, because you may start hearing from schools and parents on that too.
As a board member, I always want to fend off complacency and not accept the system's priorities necessarily as the board's priorities, although they are, very much complementary. There are things that the board does that are unique, and I've been a proponent in the past of board retreats and opportunities for planning. I understand that an annual evaluation is that does seem to be, I don't know, that seems to be a little more frequent than we may need. It's almost a semi-annual when, because of the opposing terms, that we would do a semi-annual evaluation or something like that. If we wanted to modify this in that direction, it would leave in place a board self-evaluation and yet maybe make it not so intrusive.
Other committee members?
As a parent, even though I have graduated, I would appreciate knowing that those that we vote for and that we place on the board, that they are being thoughtful about how they're doing. Our board, as a nonprofit, we do strategic planning and evaluation maybe on a 3-year basis to try to look at, okay, where do we need to strengthen ourselves? What types of things do we need to develop our own ability to govern? That's the right word. So I would love to know that you're doing that. My other question, though, would be, if you did a self-evaluation, what would you do with it? So is it an internal document? Is it something that you then have to publish? Because that brings a whole other set of questions. Because when we do board types of things in our nonprofit, it's a working document for us. It's not a public document. Doesn't mean that it's a secret, but it's a work tool for us to improve what we do.
Well, I would think everything would be transparent. Evaluation, everything is, unless we're in executive session, as it should be.
But we take out an ad in DJ and say, board conducts, evaluation and have to go through a public hearing or anything like that. Like, does it get to be really involved? Or is it a work tool?
And I can't answer that.
There's no public hearing contemplated by this policy. There would not be a public hearing.
That would be a public document.
It would be a public document, yes.
We do the 5-year building plan and other programs like that gives us goals that we try to meet.
You have the board is being evaluated a lot more today than it was years ago. Just a version of testing that you have to undertake and report to the state, and with other goals that Mr. Odom referenced. So, with respect to what all you're already doing, you are really evaluating yourself and seeing concrete results of how you're doing as a board with respect to how education is going in the school system and the test scores you get. That's a pretty specific empirical evidence of kind of how the board's doing and what schools may be deficient and ones that are doing better than others. That's something you have today that you don't have in years past.
I guess I draw a line of distinction between what Rutherford County School System is evaluated on, which I think is what Mr. Reed, you're speaking to when it comes to test scores and state evaluations and things of that nature, versus what is the Rutherford County School Board evaluated on. And that's the vision, the direction, the purpose of our school system, our continuity with the community, our reflection of the community, our interaction with the funding body. Those are different priorities that the board uniquely has, and they're not evaluated in any of these state assessments or anything of that nature. I know when we have new board members come on, which again brings me back to that semi-annual concept, it could be as often as every 2 years that a new board member could come on. It's incredibly beneficial for the board to pause and say, here's the lay of the land and the status of where things are, for that board member to be up to speed and on track with what may be multi-year plans that are in process.
Plus, I think also, when you're evaluated on the basis of test scores and stuff, it's not just the board that determines that, it's teachers, the administrators in the school, the students themselves. So I see more of a distinction between those two types of evaluation and reviews.
I wonder if TSBA has a set of criteria that they recommend to use in conjunction with this policy
I'm sure they do.
that you might look
I
at.
mean, I'm sure that they have a criteria of others that will to do their own self-evaluation.
Well, we need to,
Maybe we need to put it off till the next meeting. In the meantime, might do some groundwork and somebody that if TSB has one.
but one of the requirements of the boardsmanship program through TSBA is an individual self-evaluation. I know Mr. Hodge has done it, Mr. Holliday, myself. Is any other board members? Okay, Mr. Young. So, I mean, we're doing that because we're all participating in the boardsmanship program through TSBA. So,
That would be my suggestion, we just do our homework here a little bit and bring this back to the next meeting. So I want to make sure we're adding value here. I don't want to do something just because we're doing it.
yeah.
It's not adding value to what we do. There's, reasons to do it.
Okay, and we'll move on to 2. Policy 3.210 is naming of facilities. And again, just in reviewing this section, we noticed that on line 27, there on the first page, what wasn't a policy was when a school facility is to be named, the director of schools will appoint a committee to consider names for the new facility. In actuality, what we do is the chairman of the board names the committee, so we just needed to change that from to reflect what we're doing in our system.
The chairman of the board is not looking forward to that duty. I hope that doesn't come around. But I guess that's okay. We've had some discussion on this before, matter of fact, 3 or 4 times. And certainly Mr. Nolan at Riverdale High School was an exception and would fall under the very first thing that was mentioned here. But I think, since I mentioned here, I'm going to comment. I think in general, maybe even specifically, this is a pretty good idea. The entire policy, and the chairman, which is me right now, will certainly accept that duty should it happen. I'm not going to make a motion. One of you is going to make a motion.
Move to accept.
Okay, who was it? Kim? Okay. And the second was?
Ms. Harvey?
Harvey, thank you. Any comment, board members? Committee members. I'm sorry, I said board members. Committee members.
Typically, the chair appoints a person, it's in their zone, in part of the area that you cover. And I think it's great for you to have that participation. You know the people to bring into your committee, and we're choosing school colors and names. But director of schools can do it, but I just think it's really nice when boards can do that for your area.
Well, I think that I could certainly say, at least for now, with me, that I would name, probably chairman of the committee would be whoever the whoever the school board member is that where that school is. I mean, that would be an opinion, and would probably include commissioner or two from that area, educator or two, so forth. That would be
We just did it for Rocky Ford.
Right.
So,
right. If there are no further comment, then we need a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. And opposed, and Mr. McLeod?
Number 3 is policy 1.402, notification of meetings. Again, in reviewing section 1 of the policy manual, this was one of the policies that we noticed we needed to adjust sort of the way that we're doing things. And you can see the part in red that talks about how we provided notices for meetings. They used to be posted here. We sent notices to local media outlets. We sent notices to the president of the local education association, and now we post those on our website. So just to reflect that change.
It's more widely disseminated now than it was before, because it is on the internet. Anybody can look at it.
Motion for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Holliday, I believe that was Ms. Moore for a second. Any comment? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Number 4, agendas.
Policy 1.403, agendas. Again, just reviewing section 1, your policy 1.403, the last paragraph there was an annual agenda, which is exactly what it says. And so, and noticing that we don't currently post an annual agenda, we either need to delete that portion of the policy as we're not practicing that, or begin to do an annual agenda.
Any problem here, board committee members? Need a motion to adopt, please?
second.
Thank you, Ms. Belvin. Mr. Blair, thank you for your second. Any comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Number 5 is 1.406 minutes. And again, just correcting some of the things that have kind of aged out of our policy. We used to distribute copies of our minutes to board members manually, so to speak, and now they're posted on our website. And that on the district website should be in red, I'm sorry. That's the line 8.
I move to adopt the changes.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Estes, thank you. Any comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there is none. By the way, if you make a request to the mayor's office, they will put you on their email list for any committee, county committee, if you want to get their minutes. I always get the health and ed and budget, and it's really not a problem for them. They'll just add you to the list, and you'll receive it the day or two after they meet. Ms. McLeod?
All right, we are on to number 6, policy 1.200, method of election of officers. Again, just kind of cleaning up. As you can see on line 2, we have in our policy currently the first meeting in September, we will elect a chair and a TLM representative, and we typically don't do that until the next meeting in September. So taking that out of what we require to do at the first meeting, and then line 5, until we have that chairman elected, the director, not any member, calls the meeting to order. So just sort of putting us into compliance there.
Move to adopt.
Thank you, Mr. Estes. A second from someone? I'm sorry? Who was it? Mr. Curley, thank you. Mr. Curley there, Ms. Cloud. All in favor, please say aye.
Number 7, policy 2.200, annual operating budget. And these policies are getting into things that we've received from TSBA that need to be updated due to legislative changes or regulation changes. And you can see there in red, under final adoption procedure at the bottom, what we had in the policy and then what is required at this point is that we establish a timeline. If it's not agreed upon, the board shall submit a proposed budget to the county commission no later than May 1st. If the budget is rejected, the board shall submit a revised budget within 10 business days after receiving notice of the rejection. And then within 10 days
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. The second, Ms. Moore? Ms. Harvey? Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Any comment? Are we? It goes in for final approval in late May, doesn't it? We always have that in long before that.
Well, see, we're under the private act. you know,
Right.
too, So we
Right.
have little different dates and what statute asks for.
Any comment? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? There's none. Ms. McLeod?
Number 8, is policy 6.405, graduation requirements. Let's see, we've got a couple changes here on line 17. They've added to the requirements in this legislative change that before high school graduation, every student shall complete a United States Civics test. And I'm sorry, that second part, like I said, we were making changes late here, should be up under number 4. The ACT or SAT in the 11th grade if enrolled in Tennessee Public School System during the 11th grade. Is that right, Mr. Rhodes?
That's the change they
So
made.
that would be a change to number 4, and then number 5 is to complete a United States Civics test. And then on the second page, also statutory requirements for early graduation. And you see those listed 1 through 6 for students who graduate early, they must have all of these things in place in order for that to be approved.
We're very likely, our administrative procedures take a policy sometime and explain it. And what she has, here's the statutory thing. There's a couple of things there, you know, where meet the minimum ACT or SAT. You know, my question was the composite or what? Well, they actually spell it out. And it's the math and the English language arts. It's 19, I think, and is the benchmark in math, 18 in something in English language arts is spelled out in the legislation, but we'll.
I put that in number 2, Mr. Rhodes.
Okay.
Should that be in number 3? I mean, number 4, I'm sorry. I put it under the benchmark score. It should be the ACT portion.
ACT is where you, yes, ACT.
Okay, so it's got 19 or higher on ACT, 18 or higher in English, 19 or higher on reading. That portion should be down here by the number 4.
This is changing is almost as we talk. The state board is met the 14th of this month, and they're still revising some of these things. And that when she started this process, they hadn't met, so it's a moving target.
We need to hold off on this one?
No, I mean that's where they are now. And I think it's going to be the other one down there where it talks about the courses. It's just 2 credits in any of those now is the way it's listed when you kind of initially read. You wonder what are they saying, but it's.
So can I ask a question? What were the requirements prior to this?
It's new,
Okay.
as far as I know. The early graduation was is something that's come up in the last couple of years that they've done. I'm not aware of any earlier.
Well, and the discussion from TSBA was that apparently, under some circumstances, the system would have been punished for a child, or at least not counted perhaps appropriately if a child graduated early. This eliminates that, but sets the criteria for which they can.
What is IB?
International Baccalaureate.
The Oakland High School program.
Okay.
For the students that I know that have graduated early, very few would have fulfilled number 6.
Yes, I agree. I mean,
Yes.
they did not make it. They did not make it easy to do this. If you notice, in trying to do this, so I think the incentive is to maybe take night school and summer school and do it in 3 years, maybe, but not this way.
Well, I was happy to see number 5. You know, I think that's important.
Currently, you have to have 2 credits in the same language. You know, now is a high school requirement. So that, I mean, this requirement to me is tougher than really the current 4-year requirements. to get
Oh,
in there.
I'm sorry, I mean number 5 on the first page, specific steps. I'm sorry. I should have-
That was new legislation this last year.
And that is simply to complete the test.
They don't have to, initially they said pass it. It's, It's about the same test that a person seeking to be naturalized citizen would do. It's kind of that test.
Except if you're 6 years old like I was. I didn't have to take a hard test. They did ask me if I was married though.
Is this language specific that was given to us?
It's a statute.
That was the only thing that I wondered if you could make that clear that they have to be all.
Well, I think Dr. Ainsley's been making the rounds with that requirement.
They have to state this really early, ninth grade, beginning of the ninth, or as early as practical. So a person planning to do this, I don't know how many coming out of eighth grade really know what this entails. But anyway, that's the legislation.
Well, civics is taken generally as a freshman or sophomore course, isn't that correct? But the test doesn't have to be passed even. Is taken during the 11th grade?
No, that's doing good.
Is that-
Up in that number.
Okay,
four.
all right.
That's not a mistake, sorry.
Okay. Is there a motion somewhere around the table? Mr. Young moves for adoption. Is there a second? Ms. Anthony? Dr. Anthony, excuse me. Any comment? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. McLeod?
Number 9 is 6.413, prevention and treatment of sports-related concussions. And minor change here, and this has been added to the statute as well. On the second page, line 11, a physician assistant with concussion training who is a member of a healthcare team supervised by a Tennessee licensed medical doctor or osteopathic physician has been added to the list of people who can return an athlete to athletics.
Ms. Moore moves for approval. Second. Kim, thank you. There's probably a great deal coming down the pike on this sort of thing, but our coaches are certainly aware. And this is starting to be quite an issue, as I assume you're probably up to date on, but athletic activity or competition due to a concussion or suspected concussion shall be allowed to return, and you've read the rest of it. And I want to point out that Mr. Hodge and Mr. Young, or Mr. Hodge is going to chair a committee on injuries, particularly prevention of concussions, later on after football is over with. So we may have to revisit this somewhat. But this is an issue, in my opinion, that is absolutely not going to go away and shouldn't go away. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We're in good shape. Any comment? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay.
Number 10 is 1.407, school board records. And most of you will remember that we made some significant changes to this policy based on statutory requirements. When we met back in June, we left one thing off, and it's on the last page. We just have to have the person who is overseeing public records request, you have to have the contact information policy, so I've added that.
Move for adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday. A second?
I second it.
Okay. You get that, Ms. McLeod?
I did.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And the last policy is policy 6.304. And this is one, after reviewing some of our policies, I realized that it is a requirement to see down line 21 on the first page that we have the definition of harassment included, and we have another policy on harassment that contains that, but this policy needs to have that definition as well. So I just added harassment, it's the same definition. Just to make it compliant.
Comment, discussion, motion?
I move to adopt.
Thank you, Ms. Bellman. Mr. Estes, I believe, a second. Any comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there is none. Ms. McLeod, does that finish our agenda?
Finishes it up.
Just a moment to thank the committee for, nobody sent me any nasty emails, not wanting to serve, and I've prepared for those, but I'm glad I didn't get any. And was certainly delighted and tonight is a good example. I think everyone does a good job here and is interested and informed, and the board appreciates it and the chairman appreciates it. If there's nothing else, Mr. Director?
Interesting, on the credit recovery, because we've had such an aggressive program, it's working, you know about it, the online thing. Carol McCauley, who was the one doing it for us, had the state ask her to serve on that state committee. So I did speak to her again this afternoon, and she was telling me there's another call-in among them this Friday. They're working on whether it's gonna be pass-fail, or are you gonna say 50% for old grade, 50 for new, or 25, 75, or what? None of that's been decided, so that's why we pulled it off. I hate to put a policy out there when it's still hadn't really gelled on which direction it's going, so. But we're lucky to have someone on it that can keep us informed. That's the point.
Any other committee member with a comment? Appreciate Mr. Zago being the only member of our audience tonight. He was excellent and well behaved. Well, excellent job, Mr. Zago. If there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you.